Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 bill extending several COVID-era policies and programs by allowing virtual meetings to continue from March 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Norton Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible.
It keep kind of fading in and out.
No guidelines for remote participation by members of the BENDA. Members of the public attending this meeting, this public hearing / meeting virtually, will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by raising their hand virtually or pressing *9 if participating by phone. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Norton Cable website, www.nortonmediacenter.org, an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting.
Stone Photo. Yeah. All right. Well, Julian's logging in. Looks like we have a full house, right? We have Mark Fernandez, Paxton Household, Ron O'Neill, Ron O'Reilly, Tom Levesque, Julian is here, Dan Pearson, and John Thomas and Megan Harrop. Julian, you're just in time.
Got my volume here. Everybody's very quiet.
I already went through the statement, but
Yeah.
if you really want to hear it again, Julian, I'll be happy to.
So first item.
Maybe we should record it and just punch a button in the future. But all that aside, so I assume you announced that this is Monday, November 27th at 6:33 p.m.
You just
And
did.
this is our regularly scheduled Conservation Commission meeting, and we're up to proposed conservation restrictions, Zero Reservoir Street. Would that be our agenda item?
Good evening.
Yes.
All right. Do we have a representative that's going to propose that?
We do, Mr. Chair. My name is Ned Corcoran. I am an attorney in Milton, Mass, representing the owners of a fairly significant piece of property on Reservoir Street. I'm joined this evening by Cam Campbell, who's an engineer with DeSalle Burke Sala. We were before the planning board for much of this year, and 2 weeks ago, they voted to approve a definitive subdivision plan dividing this property into 14 lots. It's in an R60 zone, so 60,000 square foot lots with a new subdivision road that would be installed. It is a significantly wooded lot that abuts the Norton Reservoir, and in the context of the definitive subdivision hearing, we proposed that we would provide a conservation restriction over an approximate 15.5 acre portion of this property, preserving significant areas of wooded property on lots. If we can share screen, Cam has a colored up plan of the subdivision depicting areas that are currently proposed, depicting the lots and areas that would be proposed for the conservation restriction. You can see to the plan sheet to the top is the reservoir. I see the new proposed road that connects at 2 locations to Reservoir Street, and each of the lots is laid out with the appropriate frontage and lot size. It's clear that 60,000, at least to us, that 60,000 square feet is a significant lot. If just clear cut, you would blow away acres of forest and would create lots that would actually, I think, be difficult and expensive to maintain. So, with the blessing of the owners, we propose that we would create sort of 20 to 30,000 square foot building areas within each lot, and preserve between 30 and 40,000 square feet of each lot for publicly protected open space. The planning board accepted that as a component of the subdivision approval. They are requiring that we work with an arborist, a certified arborist, to sort of identify significant trees that should be preserved as part of this preservation effort. We're also preserving or providing public access to the reservoir waterfront itself. If you can scroll that down, Cam. Lot 5 abuts the reservoir. We're proposing that we would create a small parking area and public access of easement over a significant portion of this lot. And there is also a walking path that would be designed and installed, sort of a gravelly walking path along the right-hand side of the property that would connect from Reservoir Street to this lot and around. So there would be a small public parking area with, I think, 4 spaces and this other area. There will be a homeowners association that is being established, and the homeowners association will be responsible for maintaining the roadway and the utilities until such time as the town is prepared to accept the road as a town way, but also would be required to protect and preserve the areas under control of the CR in conjunction with the commission and your representatives. And so with that, we've submitted a draft. So if you can pull out a little bit, Cam, the area in green are the areas that would be dedicated to conservation restriction, subject to minor modification based on work with the arborist. As we put together a final plan, really with your approval, we'd want to work with John Thomas closely on that. And the lighter green is sort of our drainage and drainage easements and swales that would be included within the area of the conservation restriction, but would also serve a purpose for managing stormwater and drainage coming off of the new proposed roadway. And so with that, let me pause and open it up to questions. We look forward to working with the commission on finalizing a CR in this location. As I said, I submitted a draft. It's substantially similar to CRs that the commission has approved in the past. As you probably know, it needs to go also to the select board and to the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for approval, but we wanted to start with you and get your preliminary comments, concerns, questions. So let me pause and throw it open to the commission for questions.
If I may just ask a very basic question. I see that this is 0 Reservoir Street. I take it, and maybe you or someone else can answer this, that this property abuts the other property that we've been dealing with, which is files, 1129 through 31 or something like that. Maybe a member of the commission can.
I'm not.
Yeah, it's near that location. It's not. It doesn't directly abut that.
It doesn't directly abut it, but it's
Yeah, it's
sort
close
of in the
to it.
same wedge.
It's within the
Okay.
same vicinity.
Yeah.
And
one
the
of
location
one
that
of
you're thinking of is further south.
One other
Okay.
thing I should mention,
Yeah.
they'll be filing an application for, filing a notice of intent in the near future, because this roadway is within the jurisdiction of at least a portion of the roadway is within the jurisdiction of the commission.
Yeah, I was going to kind of ask. There are obviously no buffer zone designations on the plan that you present, but you're saying some of this, it doesn't look like, it just guesstimate. It doesn't look like any of the house lots actually are in the buffer zone, although lot 14, I'm not sure whether that could be. But it's your general impression that the house lots as designed here are not within the buffer zone. Is that correct?
So lot 5 in the rear here, that one, the house lot is within the buffer zone. And then
Okay.
I believe lot 14 will have some of the house lot in the buffer zone. I can show you where the buffer zone is quickly.
My understanding is that the intention for the developer is to come in for the roadway and the stormwater drainage, and then we'll come back selectively when they're ready, basically, to develop any house lots within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay.
So these red lines show the buffers. So you get lot 1 clips the corner, lot 14 you have that corner clipped, and then up in the majority of lot 5 is within the buffer zone. So it's three house lots have area within the buffer zone.
And it is your intent by this conservation restriction that there will be no landscaping activity, for example, within those green areas, which is always a potential issue with homeowners that don't necessarily know the restriction. So I think potentially in your filing, there will have to be some notation for designation of the limits of what homeowners are able to do.
Yeah, we can look into that. I mean, a steel post with a sign can be, or like a split rail fence. It kind of leave it up to where the owner wants to go with it for the look, and then what suits the restriction the best.
Yeah, I mean, I would think homeowners would want to maintain as much greenery as possible as it enhances privacy.
Yeah.
And I also think that once they do come in front of us with a notice of intent filing, that would probably be within the conditions that we would place in there.
I anticipate that a draft of the CR will be attached as an exhibit to the decision on the definitive subdivision. Those will be recorded documents. Anyone who purchases a lot would be purchasing with notice of the CR and the effect of the CR on each of the properties.
Do we have other questions from members of the commission or?
Yeah, I have a comment. Excuse me. I'm a little perplexed here. So typically when you see a conservation restriction on a property, it's a contiguous piece of land. It's not chopped up, it's not segmented, and you don't feel like you're walking through somebody's backyard. That's the basic issue I have with this is I highly doubt anybody's going to feel comfortable walking out there. You're basically in somebody's backyard. I've seen this happen down the street at Arrowhead, where people basically exclude the public because it makes it look like their side yard. It's not inviting, it's not posted, and there's no way you can tell. So my question to you is, what value does this bring to the town? I mean, I would have clustered this in one section of the property and then had open space for a contiguous area leading back to the next parcel. I'm just wondering, what benefit is this fragmented situation between with roadways bisecting it and people's backyards basically occupying most of it? What benefit to the town?
So the center portion isn't meant to be walked. It's meant to just act as a restriction to eliminate the clearing of trees. It's not open to the public. It's just there to preserve the trees so that the whole lot doesn't get clear cut and create drainage issues in the long run. The right side of the property where this mouse is, there will be a 4-car parking area for public parking with a 3-foot wide stone dust path that loops around the whole edge of the site down to a viewing area. And you can connect it all the way around down this whole sideline where it comes back out to the road over here. And you can tie it in with the sidewalks if you want to do a full loop.
So the only public access then is around that loop. Again, in people's backyards, essentially. I honestly just don't see the benefit to this. I mean, you wouldn't have to put a restriction up here if you just said, we're only gonna clear cuts, for instance, on lot 7, we're only gonna put the house at the, you know, where the, closer to the frontage, and we're gonna maintain that in perpetuity.
But it doesn't restrict the owner from ever going back there and clear cutting it himself of the lot.
Okay,
The conservation restriction sets it in stone that he cannot go and clear those trees.
and who's gonna police that? The town?
The HOA.
Okay, that's gonna be entertaining. So the public, so you mentioned that the roads won't be public at first, so until they're accepted by the town. So what if the roads are never accepted by the town, which is what happened at Arrowhead? So does that mean the public won't have access to that parking lot in the future?
No, it's still open to the public. The roadway will be open for travel to the public. It just will not have been accepted as a public street.
Okay,
So
So
it'll be
is it-
maintained, it'll have to be maintained by the homeowners association.
okay. So you only envision people walking from this frontage through, you know, behind lot 1, all the way back there, and then making that loop.
Yeah. I know Reservoir Street has no sidewalks, so there's no way to connect it out that way. And with this easement, it protects the waterfront and allows the town and its residents to use the waterfront as if it, instead of it just being a single family lot that owns the entire waterfront where no one can go on it.
I will add to that point that you just made that in line with the open space and recreation plan, that's goal number 7 right there. So that's one of the goals on the open space and recreation plan with access to the water. So all in all, that touches upon one of the goals.
Okay, but you can't launch a boat, you're just gonna be walking up to a viewing platform, and you're gonna be walking in somebody's side yard to get there.
One of the things that we offered in the process of the hearing with the Conservation Commission was an option for the town to purchase that lot itself as a publicly owned piece of property, or to provide an easement for public access and enjoyment. And currently, the position of the town has been to have us create an easement and create an overlook area, but not to seek to purchase the property. But, you know, if that were to change, if the town would desire to acquire that for its own purposes, would certainly be open to that as an alternative.
I mean, I appreciate what you're doing. The issue is, I've seen this in action. And John Thomas, if you have not been down to Arrowhead, you should go, because they have just, the lawns, everything have just taken over what is supposed to be public access. And it's intimidating. I feel weird walking down there, and I shouldn't, because it's supposed to be public access. It's not signed, there's people's fence posts. They just kind of overtook the entire area, so you feel like you're trespassing. And I, you know, it's in the spirit of wanting the public to enjoy this, but if they don't know what's available, or it's intimidating to be walking through somebody's yard, then there's an issue. So I just want to make sure that it's accessible, and I want to make sure those things happen and don't preclude the public. I guess that's the biggest issue I have with it. And like I said, John, I think if you haven't seen Arrowhead, you should absolutely get down there.
Right, and I understand Arrowhead. It's a totally different location than this one. This one abuts the Norton Reservoir, and you know,
Well, I get that.
Norton Reservoir is one of the most prime, you know, places here in town. And securing additional access, whether it's for recreational use or just sightseeing or fishing or something of that nature. I mean, this adds a lot of potential value, for another potential area for the general public to see it from a different angle. I mean, I've been over this location when they were actually doing a lot of the, reviewing the wetlands, and it's beautiful down here. You just sit by the edge of the bank and look out at the reservoir, and it brings you back to kind of before, this whole area was colonized, because you really can't see much development in this area. So, it's a nice spot, nice location. So, it kind of gets you back into that natural feel. So I felt when I was talking to, Ned and Cam about this, that this would definitely add a lot of benefit, even if it's just going to be for, pedestrian access to maybe someone to go fishing or bird watching or something of that nature. I mean, we've got a couple dedicated spots along the reservoir for kayaking and access for boating. So, we're always looking for other improvements, but, just having the diversity of having different spots along the reservoir would definitely benefit the community and also the town as a whole.
Yep, I mean, totally agree with that, John. The problem is getting people there and not recruiting it and not letting the people that live here basically wall it off. That's what's
To that point, Lisa, I had a quick question too, because there are no sidewalks along Reservoir, and as far as I understand, no plans to put sidewalks along Reservoir. Is it even necessary to have a public access back behind those houses if it's just a danger to encourage people to try to walk there from Reservoir Street?
And that's why we added the public parking, the 4 spaces, and there's sidewalks proposed on this roadway so that you can loop back to your parking spot. It's not, I mean, if people walk on Reservoir, that would be their choice. There's not really a walking area on Reservoir to get to here. So it's more for within this development.
We'd be happy to incorporate signage as appropriate. We certainly understand your concerns, and would want to work with you and John as to how to best address the preservation of that feeling of openness so that people feel welcome and want to be able to take advantage of it.
I believe the conservation restriction here in the rear, you have quite a good distance of trees that will not be cut to separate yourself from the house lots so that you don't feel like you're walking on someone's lawn. You'll be in the woods, kind of separate. You'll have a tree buffer between the houses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to give the commission some other context, I mean, we have over 34 conservation restrictions here in town that the town's in charge of managing. And I will say that some of them only have 20 to 40 feet width to them for travel. And, still I see people use those, and they've created trails and things of that nature. So they do get used, they do get utilized. I don't think the houses are going to deter them from getting to, a good sitting spot or a good spot to kind of enjoy, whether it's a picnic or a lunch or, just to kind of go out and see kind of, the reservoir. I think they're still going to want to go to that location.
So I'd just like to make a comment. I'm presuming this is primarily informational at this stage. You mentioned this is not finalized by the planning board, is that correct?
Planning board is meeting tomorrow night, and we anticipate that they will be signing the decision approving the decision on the definitive subdivision. They voted 2 weeks ago on that. So we've spent several meetings with the planning board developing this plan. We've got to be back before the commission shortly with the notice of intent to address the installation of the road and utilities. And we would certainly welcome, further opportunity to work on the final form of the CR. We've proposed it as a condition to subdivision approval. So we anticipate that at least the draft that they have will be attached. The final form would be the final form based on how we work things out with the commission as we go forward. But that's where we stand now. We see that, the CR itself will take some additional time. there's some final wordsmithing. We've got to do the meets and bounds description for the plan. We have to do some other things, and then we're going to have to be before the select board, because as I understand it, the commission signs it, the select board signs it, and it's ultimately approved by the Secretary of Environmental Affairs. So there's some process that remains, and there's some opportunity to incorporate ways to address the comments and concerns that we've heard tonight, and I assume that we would hear further as we start into the hearing on the NOI.
All right, all right, so, any further questions from anyone? Just either raise your hand or speak up, identify yourself. Otherwise, this is identified as an informal discussion, so there really is no closing of any hearing or meeting.
Or continuation?
Right. I mean, I think any further discussion would be in the context of the notice of intent. Is that a fair way to put it, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think then the next step for Ned and Cam is to basically get that notice of intent application in. Our next deadline is going to be December 11th, so if they can do that, they'll be on the agenda for the next meeting in January.
All right. So I guess unless there's further questions, comments,
Comment. I would just like to say I strongly agree with Lisa's questions, and I would hope that there is more obvious benefit to the town going forward.
well, if,
I
I mean, I'm familiar with this area. And right now there is no access to this area. And if it is properly signed, I think the way this proposed path for public access is illustrated, it would not be a bad walk. I mean, it would not, I mean, much of it is isolated. It goes along the border, but the border itself, the adjoining land is also heavily treed. So I think it could be, if properly done, it could be a very pleasant loop walk as proposed.
I would also state that if anyone from the commission wants kind of like a reference to kind of what this potentially could be, to head over to Barrowsville Pond to where the parking area is and take that long, I guess, run that's going in with the trail, and then you basically loop right out. So that's kind of what you'd be looking at here. And I see people parked over there all the time. It's widely used.
I suppose the other benefit, it's less of a sort of a public access benefit, is that 15.5 acres of wooded area is being preserved as such. It's important for habitat. It's also important for preservation of the woods themselves. I just think that that's a significant environmental benefit.
All goals of our open space and preservation plan. So thank you.
All right, so I think if there's no further discussion, I thank you guys, and we are going to move on in our agenda.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for your time.
Thank you.
So there are no new public hearings this week, but there are a substantial number of continued public hearings, some of which have requests for continuation. But our first one, our first three we take as a group. File number 250-1129, referred to as Lot C, 0 Mansfield Avenue, and also 250-1130, Lot D, and file number 250-1131. That's considered Lot E. On my agenda, all of them have a request for continuation until December 11th. So I think, we can consider a motion for,
Make that motion.
all right, we have a
Second.
motion made by Thomas, seconded by Dan for continuation of all three of those, file numbers until December 11th. Roll call vote, beginning with Tama and Dan,
Aye.
Aye.
Ron and Lisa,
Aye. Aye.
Mark and Paxton,
Aye. Aye.
and I'll throw in an aye, so the motion carries. Next up on our agenda is a notice of intent for file number 250-1132, Mary Jo Road, Mark Mariano. Do we have a representative of the applicant?
Megan, did he reach out to us requesting continuance?
I know we were still waiting on paperwork from Mass DEP or for him to update things. So
Yeah, he said basically that he wants to continue until he receives information from, not Mass DEP, Natural Heritage, response back from them. So I would presume that he is not able to provide that information to us. So we should probably continue it to the next meeting.
All right, looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made by Dan, seconded by Paxton. Roll call vote, starting with Tama and Dan,
Aye.
Aye.
Ron and Lisa,
Aye. Aye.
and Mark and Paxton.
Aye. Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. Motion carries for continuation of 6 Mary Jo Road hearing. And next is file number 250-1136, notice of intent, 0 Eddy Street, Chair Corp, for a proposal for, I think it was 4 duplex buildings. Do we have a representative of that applicant, or is that also going to be a request for continuation?
I think
did
Sam's,
request
he did, okay. I thought I saw that email come through, okay.
All right, and recommended for the next meeting, December 11th?
yes.
All right, looking for that motion.
So
So
moved.
moved.
All right, we got a motion by Tama and seconded by Dan. Roll call vote, starting with Tama and Dan.
Aye.
Aye.
Ron and Lisa? I think those were both ayes.
Aye. I'm just waiting for Ron.
Yeah, Ron's still on mute. But I see an aye. So we'll go on to Mark and Paxton.
Aye. Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye, so the motion carries. Next item is file number 250-1140, 237 East Main, is a proposal for construction of a 32,000 square foot warehouse industrial building. And I think, is this one of our, we just had to close? Is that, where do we stand with that?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I think we're issuing an order tonight, right?
Yeah, I believe though the plan was to close and issue an order this evening for this project based on the last meeting. So if the commission wants to deliberate and discuss.
Yeah, this was not, somehow I don't have the right numbers here, because I have 1139, 1119, and I don't have the order on that. Did I just overlook that in our Google Drive?
Yeah,
This
I
is-
put it in the Google Drive. It's under, I had to scroll up a little bit to get to it, but
Okay, well, I will look at when we get to, so first item of business is, we have all of the information we need to close, as I understand it, John, is that correct?
That is correct.
So we can go ahead, unless there's further discussion or questions, and consider a motion to close the public hearing for file number 250-1140.
I can make that motion.
All right, motion to close by Paxton and seconded by
Seconded by
Tama, and a roll call vote. Tama and Dan,
aye.
Aye.
Ron and Mark,
Aye. Aye.
Paxton,
Aye.
and Lisa, are you an abstention? You're an abstention, okay.
I think I am.
Yeah, all right. And I'll throw in an aye, so the motion carries. So we will be deliberating shortly on that. But first, we need to consider the hearing on file number 250-1142. Notice of intent for West Main Street for construction of 2 residential buildings. Did we have new information coming in on that?
I believe they sent in an email as well, Megan, requesting a continuance. Is that correct?
Yes, they requested to the next meeting.
Okay. So December.
All right. So we can consider a motion on that.
So moved.
Okay. Do you think
Was
we
that a
can
second? What was that a second? Okay. Motion by Dan, seconded by Lisa for continuation of file number 250-1142, beginning with Tama and Dan,
Aye.
and Ron and Lisa,
Aye.
Aye.
Mark and Paxton.
Aye. Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye, so the motion carries for continuation of that hearing. And we're finished with our hearings, and our next item is file number 250-1033, which is a request for a partial certificate of compliance, 65 Plain Street.
I did not receive anything from them that was on there. They said they were going to send something over to us. So
So it sounds like that will be tabled.
that'll be tabled till the next meeting.
All right, we don't need a motion on that, I assume.
No, we don't.
And okay, looking at the agenda, we're at the order of conditions as well as NRAD. So our first item is file number 250-1141. I just grab that. So not exactly controversial. Anyone have any comments on that?
Let's see, John, I think you just want to make item 2, the 2 isolated wetlands. I think you want to make that plural.
Is it singular? All right, I'll make the change to plural.
And then I think you just needed to add the plan date.
Oh yeah, because I didn't receive the plans until after. So I just got to update because we received the plans after I drafted that up. So I'll update that with the new revision date on them.
So if that's it, I would make a motion to issue the ORAD for 250-1141 as discussed.
Second.
We have a motion made by Lisa, seconded by Paxton. Roll call vote beginning with Tama and Dan,
Aye.
Aye.
and Ron and Lisa.
Aye.
Aye.
and Mark and Paxton.
Aye. Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. The motion carries. The orders on the ORAD for 250-1141 is approved as modified. Our next item is file number 250-1119, requested amended order of conditions for South Washington Street project.
Say, look at my video.
Well, everything is all set, Mr. Patrick. So I don't know if you need to participate at all. We have a set of orders. And does any member of the commission have any comments on the orders? They're fairly straightforward.
So John, you just highlighted the amendment, right?
That's correct. Everything that's in there that's highlighted, I struck out stuff too, so that way it's obvious to any reader that knows what the changes were. So all those changes you'll see in the document.
So, for instance, on number 9, is any of the memo that the peer reviewer did from March 2023 still stand? Or is that go way down?
That was the comments from, for instance, when he originally did the design, so I left that as intact. So do you want me to strike that? I can strike that as well.
No, I was wondering if any of that was still valid.
So they basically redid
Okay.
the surface, so I can strike the March 2023 and just update it with the date.
That's fine. I didn't know if there was anything that was a holdover from the March 23rd approval that still counted. Or
No,
that
he
was
basically did a secondary,
Okay.
he did a follow-up review of the whole entire project from the
Okay.
original design.
Okay.
All right, so it sounds like we're all set on the amended order for file number 250-1119.
So I'll make a motion to approve that as written.
Second. We have a motion made by Lisa, seconded by Mark. Again, roll call vote, starting with Tama and Dan,
Aye.
Aye.
and Ron and Lisa,
Aye.
Aye.
and Mark and Paxton,
Aye. Aye.
and I'll throw it an aye. So the motion carries. The orders of conditions for file number 2, the amended orders of condition for file number 250-1119 South Washington Street are approved as drafted. So our next item on the agenda is file number 250-1139, 0 Dean Street, or a 4-lot subdivision. And again, not a lot controversial, kind of standard. Any comments, questions?
So John, you just added that one condition on 21. Is that it?
That's really it that I saw that was necessary to do based on the comments that I received from the peer reviewer. And I just took basically a template from a previous subdivision that we did and used that as a template.
Okay.
All right, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the OOC.
Second.
We have a motion made by Tama and seconded by Lisa to approve the order of conditions for file number 250-1139 as drafted. Roll call vote, beginning with Tama and Dan,
Aye.
Aye.
and Ron and Lisa,
Aye.
Aye.
and Mark and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. The motion carries. So
I apologize. Who was the second mover on
That was Lisa, I think.
that one?
yeah, and Donald made the
Made
motion.
the
was Tom
motion,
and who else?
Lisa seconded, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
So it looks like, I mean, part of what happened is I see that 1142, I think it was 1142 we were talking about, is not on the agenda as a review the orders of conditions.
Oh, you mean 1140,
Oh, yes, I guess it was,
237 East Main Street?
yeah.
Yeah, because the project wasn't closed yet, so didn't want to put the cart before the horse.
Okay. But we did the same with another one. But at any rate, we are now on 1140, and I think I did not have an opportunity to review those orders. And is there a way we can bring them up on screen, or I assume they're kind of a standard set?
Yeah, I can bring it up on screen. Give me 1 second.
So everyone recalls this, and again, I think, Lisa, you're going to be having to abstain, I assume.
Can everyone see this?
We can, yes.
Okay, good.
So I saw the areas, now this, just by way of review, this was originally two separate projects, but that got altered and the filing was changed to one large project, but there was no change in the stormwater needs and access. So you had highlighted the yellow areas.
Correct. The only real change, obviously, I've kind of done a couple of these now, so for different types of development. So this one's basically set up for a warehouse sort of development, similar to what we had recently in the past. But the main thing that changed really here was the plan and when it was approved. And then obviously the comment letter that was provided by the peer review consultant claiming that there were no additional needs for the project for stormwater. I mean, this was a fairly straightforward project. There wasn't anything that was outstanding, and the majority of the work that's already being proposed is basically just grading and site work that's going to be within the conservation's jurisdiction. The extent of stormwater and the building itself is actually not within conservation jurisdiction. So it's very minor project. It was actually, when it was initially proposed, was going to be a little bit more intrusive into the buffer zone, but they scaled it back. So I don't foresee any sort of significant changes, but that's just really it.
Now, in a previous warehouse, we had concerns about metal roofing with infiltration. But in this building, was there any, I don't recall that we discussed type of roofing?
That's correct. For this one, there was no significant comments from the peer reviewer. But if there wants to be any sort of stipulations that the commission wants to put on for that, that would be something of discussion.
Well, I think it would just, maybe we can add that if the decision is to do so there is infiltration here, as I recall.
That's correct.
And And I would think the same kind of statement about if there is going to be a metal roof placed, which as far as I know, it's probably not the case, but that there would have to be additional treatment proposed.
I'd have to double check because, I mean, the stormwater management systems that they have proposed here are not within our jurisdiction. So, and they're more than 100 feet away from a resource area.
Okay. Well, then if it doesn't apply, I guess I don't recall exactly why the additional treatment was required on that other project.
I believe that's because they were within a zone 2, if I'm not mistaken.
I see.
I don't think that's the case here.
All right. Okay. And are there any other areas that were specifically modified?
No, there actually was not much that was modified with this one.
Any comments, questions from members of the commission? If not, we can consider a motion to accept the orders for file number 250-1140 as drafted.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion made by Tama, seconded by Paxton. Roll call vote, beginning with Tama and Dan.
Aye.
Aye.
Ron and Mark.
Aye. Aye.
Paxton
Aye.
and Lisa.
Abstain.
And I'll throw in an aye. So the motion carries. So our next, I lost my agenda in this. Oh, here we go. Minutes of November 13th.
I
Yeah.
fear we'll have to wait till the next meeting. I should have those and tonight's by Wednesday.
Okay, sounds good. Report from staff.
So I just want to inform everyone that the doesn't really have, well, it's going to affect us all, but the planning board has recently contracted with someone to revise their zoning bylaw. So a lot of the zoning law provisions and potential subdivision information that goes into them making decisions is going to go through a laundry list of overhaul and changes. So just to kind of, I guess, bring up the conservation restriction this evening, my thought is to make sure that the conservation restrictions that are moving forward with the language are contiguous, as Lisa has stated. I think it's very important that we try to retain open space parcels that are one big clump rather than just having small segregated parcels all over the place. Currently, that's not the case. So we just need to make sure that that gets into the next rendition of the, aspirations of the planning board, because what they're looking at is they're just looking at open space preservation as a number versus kind of what the actual benefits potentially could provide, the environment setting, the community, things of that nature. So I think it's more it's better for us if we're going to be the land stewards and managers to be able to have, kind of that kind of say as to kind of what property we're looking for to preserve and protect here in town. And I think that's going to be something that I'm going to be advocating for. And hopefully, that gets into the next, rule changes that are going to be in front of the planning board, because, like we had this evening, there's not much I can do when it comes to that kind of stuff. I don't have any say to that. And it's unfortunate, and, it's just outside my purview when it comes to those kind of determinations and, outside the conservation commissions, even though we're the stewards. But I think, hopefully the next rendition will be better for the town and also for us as the land stewards of those parcels that are going to be in front of us.
Do you have any guesstimate on what kind of time frame something like that takes? Is that like a months or is it like a years?
We're talking probably, you know, well, I think they're aiming to be on the next spring town meeting for this. I think that might be a long shot, so I'm thinking probably fall meeting next year. They'll probably have a better sense. I mean, we're just talking about it now, and they just got the general funding for it. So I think, you know, realistically, we'd be looking at probably a year out. But the person that they did hire has done, I think, 15 or so overhauls for other towns as well. So, you know,
Would that person have any, I don't know if obligation is the right word, but like any reason to consult with conservation as they're going through the overhaul process?
So,
like, would they have any kind of influence or feedback to it?
Yeah, internally, we're going to have a big, you know, group meeting about things, and obviously all the boards are going to get involved in things of that nature because it's going to affect everybody. I think everybody should have, you know, their thoughts and kind of suggestions, you know, in the ballot box as to kind of what they would think needs to basically be improved upon, especially for the, you know, long-term, you know, tenure of the town. I think it's important. I mean, I'm just starting to do the open space, you know, and recreation plan, and I'm looking at it and going through it and taking a look at all the aspirations that were, you know, 7 years ago, and seeing that, you know, some of these never came through, or that they're now currently being developed. So there's things like that we need to take into consideration for the long-term, you know, benefits for conservation. And, you know, unfortunately, the planning board has a lot of rules and regulations that are going to affect how the outcome is, especially since we don't have a bylaw. So.
Thanks for that information on that.
You're welcome.
All right, so that was all set for nothing else.
No, that's the only thing. Obviously, I'm working with the Open Space Committee on revising the I got to talk to Mike Units too, and then I got to bring in some other folks too. So if anyone from the board here, unfortunately, I talked to the town. It can't be on two boards at the same time. So if anyone wants to, you know, sit in, our next meeting, I think, is going to be Wednesday, December 6th, or if you want to provide me some suggestions via email on things that we're right now, I'm basically going over an overhaul of kind of action plan for what was originally proposed, you know, back in 2017, what has been done to date, and basically trying to get all the chronological timelines in place as to kind of what we can potentially do for the future for the open space preservation action plan. But then also looking at the goals, retooling those and refining those, and basically just going through the whole entire thing and having to, you know, kind of reshape it in a way that's kind of going to be conducive for the town, but also kind of to take some of the stuff out that's already kind of past its prime, like for instance, Houghton's Farm. I guess there's the Balfour Farm that's already under development, and then some other potential parcels that are no longer on the market because the developer is looking to build. So, you know, those kind of things that are happening, just trying to go through that and kind of figure out what the potential new prospects are going to be for conservation and for open space preservation.
John, just two things. I could be wrong, but I thought that the restriction on being two committees was on being two elected committees, that you couldn't sit on two at the same time. So I didn't think there was anything wrong with two volunteer committees.
Is that correct? I don't know. Someone told me that I couldn't have two people, like I couldn't bring people from my conservation board over to the open space committee.
No, I don't think that's right, John, because, well, in many ways. So when the Water Bodies Committee was formed, we had a roving person that participated in that. So there was definitely conservation involvement with the Water Bodies Committee. And then I was asked to join open space and stormwater over the years. So I think somebody would have told me that I couldn't participate. But the biggest one is the water bodies overlap. We had a roving, we had somebody that sat in, we took turns sitting in on those meetings for a while. But I think Mark's right.
Okay.
I'll have to check the charter or something. But
I can talk to Alicia
questions, but
about
I mean, I'm interested in the idea of the open space committee. I'm just trying to be very mindful of overcommitting to things when I've got a million things going on already. So just didn't know if you could, if it's something I could pop into here and there, or
Yeah, so
you know,
that's
tell
what
me,
I,
like, how often does the committee meet?
that's what I was gonna actually, bring up as well. I mean, if we didn't have the open space committee, it would default to conservation. So that's basically what would happen anyway. So I feel like if any member here would like to sit in on the open space committee and, they don't have to be a voting member, but they can provide insight basically from that standpoint. And, we can just meeting of the minds kind of thing to basically talk and discuss about stuff. I mean, I even threw it out to Bob Kimball to come in because he's a big history buff about knowing more about the town than most that do in here. So, I mean, it's kind of just trying to get everyone that is really motivated and kind of insightful, and just basically getting people that want to get involved. So what I'm basically stating is that if you don't have the time and commitment, that's not a big deal. But if you want to sit in on a couple meetings or, be in communications with me, because it's basically what I'm supposed to do, with kind of getting all this stuff together, just feel free to reach out. So that's kind of it. If you don't have the time or the, the mental capacity to basically deal with it, I'm basically struggling right now, as you can see. So I mean, it's basically, if you want to basically help out, I'm more than willing to basically listen and put some suggestions together for the rest of the board and stuff.
Well, Dan and I volunteered. to be
Okay.
honest, Already.
Okay. All right.
Right?
So
Remember, Dan
basically,
said if you can't find somebody, just, be
I
right
have 4 members currently. So what I need basically is, if you want to basically get involved, I need a letter of interest stating that you're interested so I can put you on the select board meeting.
Yeah, it's a
So-
rough couple of months for me work-wise, and so I'm just wondering if I could maybe pop in, and then into the spring or so, if things cool down a little bit, I can maybe formally commit to something.
Well, John, what does it take to just default to the Concom?
What do you mean?
Well, you just mentioned that if you didn't have an open space committee, it would default to the Concom, right?
But we do have an open space committee. We've had one.
You do. I didn't think you had anybody.
Yeah, I
Okay,
do. I have 4 members.
okay.
So you're looking for 7 or something?
I'm looking for a maximum of 7. Yes.
So I would suggest maybe it's just like we did for the Water Bodies Committee. It's a roving 2 people out of the 3 of us, myself, Mark, and Dan, on an as-needed basis, right? To cover the meetings? I don't know.
So, I didn't,
I mean, I guess that's up for discussion between all
know that
3
I
of
was
you.
well, I will, I
I don't want to max out your time either. I mean, it's a lot of time and effort to basically divulge to, think of conservation and open space. So, I don't want to push anybody towards
if it's
doing
just,
both.
I mean, if it's just thinking, that's.
Dan's
is-
foreplay.
Well,
there
Dan,
any-
right now it's thinking, because we have to put an open space plan together.
Yeah,
But then the other
What-
part
what
of
is-
it is going to be getting more involved and working with the community, and then, basically interacting with a bunch of folks about doing certain things around, whether it's cleanup, whether it's trail building, whether it's, advocating for certain events and things of that nature. So it's right now it's the thinking process, but there's more involved that's going to basically come after this.
oh, okay. Do you want me to write, I'll write a letter if.
I that's what I'm saying, is I need a physical letter of interest to be able to provide to the select board to basically show them that you're interested, and then they'll put you on the agenda.
Do I need to write a letter or? Okay. Okay. I'll write a letter. I guess I'll have that by Wednesday as well.
Yeah, but it can be a one-liner.
Yeah, it just says that I'd like to
Oh,
join
okay.
the open space
Wait a
committee.
minute, Dan Pearson writing something in 1 line? No.
It's gonna be like 3 paragraphs. Let's not lie.
You can tell
Yeah,
him-
it's,
you can
Lisa
tell
has a
him in
point
comments.
there. I subscribe to the old Entish philosophy of writing. You know, anything that's worth saying, it takes a long time to say.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
I can roll with it.
This is the age of texting and emails. They can be very short.
Is this? But you want a piece of paper though, John?
No, I just need an email from you with your letterhead
Oh, an
stating that,
email.
yeah, an email saying that Dan Pearson,
Is
you know,
going to get off his fat butt and rake some trails.
just make sure to put your address and your phone number in the email. So
Okay.
that way, basically, like they
Okay.
know that you're a resident here in town.
Okay. I will do that.
But I will state that you don't need to be a member of the Open Space Committee to get involved. I mean, this is the Conservation Commission, so I wouldn't mind a handful of you folks, showing up in a meeting to basically, talk and just amongst, as a collaborative effort to basically, kind of spearhead this whole initiative to, try to reshape the open space preservation here in town, because we definitely need to make sure that, like Lisa was saying, that we don't have another Arrowhead on our hands. We don't have another, kind of area that is just left to its own devices and it doesn't get managed. I think that's a lot of the problems that we have. And there's a lot of land here in town that is underutilized. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration when it comes to, this initiative. And I think that having a committee with different minds and mindsets, I think it's definitely going to be helpful.
When do you meet, John?
We meet Wednesday. Right now we're meeting at 4 p.m.
Every Wednesday or once a month or?
Once a month. That's the plan. Our
In
next
person?
meeting, in person, second floor town hall. And the next meeting is going to be December 6th. I will also say that to everybody that's listening out there, there is a survey out there on our website, on the Conservation Commission website. If you want to fill it out for open space, your feedback's very appreciated. So if you could just fill that out and basically give us some insight as to kind of the shape of our open space preservation and protection, we'd appreciate it.
So, John, who meets at 4 o'clock?
What's that?
I don't know.
It's just a tough time for the.
I know it's a tough time for everyone.
Well, I can do it,
Yeah, I mean, I might
Easily.
do it. Once a month isn't terrible. So,
but
Did you say in person or virtual?
It's in person.
in person at 4 o'clock. That's like double trouble right there.
I wasn't suggested by me. Megan, back me
More
up on this one.
motivation to become independently wealthy, Lisa, so we can just go and do all of these things.
Not yet. No, I can probably make the 6th at 4. As a matter of fact, I will shoot for that one. See how it goes.
All right, I have nothing else. I don't want to delay everyone's Monday after the holiday.
I hope
Anything in the bylaw, Jen?
Tiago feels better.
I hope so too. What was that, Lisa?
Oh, nothing in the bylaw discussion, or are we
I
still
mean,
looking-
do we want to talk?
researching,
Do we want to talk about the bylaw?
for 5 minutes?
That's
I mean,
fine.
we could
Yeah, that's
change,
fine.
But I mean, I don't know. Dan, did you get to do any research in nearby towns?
Uh,
You can say no, Dan. Just say no.
no, Dan. I haven't yet.
Okay. That's all right.
Because, well, watch me pass the buck. I said, John, do you want to get together on this at the last meeting? He said, well, we have some, I don't know.
Oh, Dan,
My
can I
something is
start
full.
this?
My plate is full.
Okay.
He was-
I'm gonna start
and
this
and he
ball-
was working on the turkey.
And he
I'm
was
gonna
working
start
on the
ball
turkey.
rolling, right? I'm gonna start this ball rolling, and I'm gonna give you a list of towns to look at. How's that?
Okay. Sounds good.
So you can focus on, which ones.
I think Paxton was part of this this crew too to assist, right?
I was, and I also was a little bit preoccupied this week, so I apologize. But I do know, I forget what town it was, but there are, I can confirm that there are plenty of other towns that have greater non-disturbance zones of even 100 feet. I think I was just looking at town of Canton, but I didn't really look.
Okay.
Yeah, some towns actually have 100-foot no build zone,
Yeah, that's
and
what.
100-foot no disturbance zone, and then they also have 150-foot no vernal pool buffer zone. So you can't do any work within 150 feet of a vernal pool, whether it's certified or not.
So this is in eastern Massachusetts,
This is in Massachusetts, yeah.
but I mean, the western part of the state tends to be less.
Less
developed.
less
Oh,
strict.
no. It's worse because what happens, I'm living it. So what happens in Western Mass is even if you have a local town, okay, I just went through this, that didn't have a bylaw. I had a solar project and we got a scathing letter from DEP Western Mass region that said you shall get everything out of the buffer zone. So Western Mass treats the buffer zone like it's a damn resource area. You can't touch it. They made us get everything out.
But in these areas, is it densely developed or
No, they want to keep it rural. They do not
Right,
want you
yeah.
in jurisdiction at all. And that was DEP. They said, we will not issue a number until you get everything out of the buffer zone. So DEP in the Western region, all the DEP regional offices are vastly different, the way they employ the regs. And they are hard and fast on that 100-foot buffer zone for new development. You stay out.
Right,
Regardless-
Well, I like that.
well, but I think you're going to get pushback
Oh, yeah, that's if you want to go to
in
court. Jim,
eastern
because nobody
Massachusetts
does.
where
Nobody rolls over.
there's been a longer history of more dense development and
Yeah.
so it's going to be, I mean, look at some of these areas. What we didn't discuss tonight with this reservoir issue was the Reservoir Street project is the septic systems and whether that area over there is even suitable.
Yeah, they're tying into sewer over there.
Really?
Yeah, they're making the connection. Yeah, it's in front of the water and sewer.
So
I just want to add on. Sorry, this is back to what I was mentioning before. A lot of these towns have 50-foot no build zones on top of the 100-foot no disturbance zone. So some examples are Acton, Amherst, Bedford, Belmont, Brewster. So kind of a wide range of towns, but
Yeah.
so this is something we have to get through town meeting though. Is that not correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So, if the intent is to put together let's just say a comprehensive bylaw that's going to be a lot different to what we normally have, and we just basically say that we want a 50-foot no disturb zone, and we also want a 100-foot no build zone or something like that. So basically that, you're basically prohibiting any development within 100 feet of any wetland. Now, I'm just saying any wetland because if you're putting in a bylaw, you might as well protect isolated wetlands too.
Yes, yes.
And that includes everything. So, you're basically going to limit a lot of potential development here in this town because the vast majority
Good.
of this town does have wetlands. But that will be basically one of the things that will eventually happen. And it's going to be very, I guess, imperative that the delineation criteria is met for a lot of these resource areas because, it's just, when I look at isolated wetlands, I say, yeah, that's an isolated wetland, but, we're not basically being very ticky-tacky with whether it meets, the right chroma or hue or color because we do not regulate isolated wetlands. It's just something that we don't do. So it's going to be an extra step that we're going to have to go through And the peer reviewer is going to have to take the extra steps. So it's going to be a lot more on the science side than basically the permitting side. I think that's really going to drive a lot of these determinations when it comes to it. So I think in the event that we are going to basically have a bylaw, we're going to see more potential ANRADs come in front of the door for wetland boundary confirmation versus just a notice of intent that comes through the door. So I think we're going to potentially have that in front of us if that's the case.
I think the black hole too is the issue of the isolated wetland or IVW with the vernal pool that we have no jurisdiction over.
Oh yeah.
Because the wetlands don't jurisdictional. We know it's jurisdictional under the water quality regs, but who goes to DEP and gets a permit? No one. So that's where we need.
They're supposed to. They are supposed to.
Well, we can't police that. We can't write that into an order. I'm dealing with a town today with a 350 foot no disturb vernal pool.
What town is this?
Build my development. Oh, I can't disclose that.
Okay.
That sounds like
to
me. That sounds like a paradise, Lisa.
Oh, you should see what I'm faced with, Dan. So for me to live with a 25 here is nothing compared to what we'll put through the ringer every day in every town. A 50-foot no disturb, a 75-foot no bill. And that's one I just came up to today. So within 50 feet, you can't disturb, no disturb. And then within 75 feet, you can't have a structure. That's another spin on it. But personally, I think if we just take the step to at least make that buffer zone 50 feet, it affords us a little more wiggle room when people come right up to the edge of it. I think that's reasonable. In the vernal pool, and then what we term as the wetland of any size, right? Any wetland.
Any wetlands, yeah.
Any
that's
wetland.
fair.
That's the magic word. Any wetland.
I think a 50-foot buffer, no disturb, regulated
Yep.
locally. Then the isolated wetland, like you said, Lisa, and then the vernal pools. I think those three items are in line with 5 or 6 other communities here, within that abut us.
Oh, at a minimum. At a minimum.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, at a minimum.
Yeah. Do we get into the statistics of, out of the, and I think MACC might have this backup if we want it, if we think we need it, that out of the 351 cities and towns, 80% of them have a bylaw that I don't know if we want to get into numbers.
Well, I think at town meeting, it's going to be important to basically make those arguments because based on the track history of the Conservation Commission prior, I think it's, we're not going to want to basically deter development entirely, but we also want to prevent it within sensitive areas. I think that's more kind of what we're basically, want to fine tune the bylaw to basically state is that, we have recognized there have been more findings of certain areas being prone to sensitivity. And by doing this, it will prevent any sort of loss or damages to those, sensitive areas.
Yeah.
Because
just say 3 things.
I think those 3 things, basically you just, outline and, if it goes through, it goes through. And if it doesn't, well, then there's nothing that we can do as a board to basically, secure, the prevention of basically any loss or damage to the environment as a result. And if it does come to that where, we need to basically discuss it with the planning board, we're going to have to talk it over with the planning board.
Could we ask for, as far as for
Sorry, Dan, you're breaking up. What'd you say?
multiple distances? I know you mentioned. Oh, can we ask for a number of different distances? I mean, you mentioned 50, but what Lisa has said encourages me to consider the 100-foot. Can we ask for all those in one night? I mean, can we say, vote on the 100-foot, and then if it doesn't, well, really, we should do 125 and then hope for 100. But and then if that doesn't work,
Dan, if we did 100, we'd be out of a job. Right?
Dan, I want to ask you, how many times have you been to a casino?
never.
Okay.
Not once.
All right. So I'm just gonna tell you, you gotta do it in small increments. Otherwise, you basically don't have any more money left. So I think I think part of the aspect of this is to just increase it marginally, but also try to pitch it as kind of as a community kind of wide thing that, for instance, other communities around us are doing the same thing, and we're just basically the black hole, which is something that just hasn't gotten off to do what other communities are doing. So I think just trying to say we're trying to bring it up to the times of 2023, and this is kind of what we're shooting for.
Yeah.
So I'll work with you guys on this, and along with other things, and hopefully we'll have a draft ready for review for Christmas. How's that sound?
Good.
Dan, you think that seems realistic?
We can certainly shoot for it, and I think what I love to do is start a spreadsheet with some of these information from some of these various towns.
Okay, so let's shoot for doing towns within 5 mile radius.
5?
Oh.
Oh, all right. Let's get
Okay.
crazy. We do 10. And the other thing that I think might be a good resource, Dan, is MACC,
Okay.
right? They have model bylaws. They have a ton of information and resources on their website.
If you want to share a spreadsheet or anything with me, be happy to maybe just add it into that if it's open to edit.
So
I
5
would-
miles, John, but we want to go north.
We want to go north.
We want to go north. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Dan, I'll give you a list. How's that?
I'm sorry.
I'll give you a list.
Okay.
I will provide a list of towns that
I'm-
you should,
May add to it.
in a fair and balanced list, not just all of them that have, the most restrictive. You'll see.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. If no further items, we can sign off.
Sounds good.
All right.
Happy turkey eating, everyone
All
with
right.
leftovers.
Someone make a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second.
All right, everyone, thumbs up.
All right, very good.
And everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Sam.